Hello, book lover. Welcome to another session with your literature teacher at Books and Culture, me, Fernanda, your literary guide, your literary host in this YouTube channel. And today we'll continue with the series of guided reading sessions of Anne Bronte's Agnes Grey. I hope you're enjoying this journey. I find it fascinating. I love reading texts written in the 19th century. If you're also a Victorian fan, let me know in the comments. And I would also love to know your impressions of the novel so far. So take the time to leave a comment here in the comment section. And also don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your book lover friends. This will really help books and culture grow and reach a wider audience. All right, so today's session 5, we're going to read together and discuss chapters 8 and 9. But before we do that, let's take a step back as usual and talk about what we discussed and read last time. Last time we read chapters 6 and 7. Chapter 6 is called The Parsonage Again, and this is when Agnes had been dismissed by the Bloomfields and she spent some time at home. Um, the father is worried about the girl's future. He's sick and he's very concerned about what will happen to the girls and his wife after he dies. Um, he tells each one, Agnes and Mary, to save the money they've earned because he doesn't think they would ever marry. So it would be best if they kept their money to start a savings account for themselves so they could be independent women without having to rely on a husband for financial security, which I think is really quite nice. They are a quite forward thinking family based on their relationship is based on love, very different from the Bloomfields, for instance. And also, they support one another in what they do. And the mother and the father encourage the girls to be independent. Um, but after being dismissed, she is not done yet with her adventures, let's say. She wants to try again. She wants to try being a governess again. But this time somewhere else, of course. And she thinks, well, not every family is like the Bloomfields and not every children like theirs. And she publishes her own advertisement. So her mother suggests that she does that. So she would aim higher this time instead of responding to an ad, publishing her own ad. And her next employment would be with the family of Mr. Murray of Horton Lodge. And she's hopeful because she thinks it was just an exception what she went through with the Bloomfields. And as she's aiming higher now, she wants to stay with a family that is it has a higher rank in society. And as consequence, theoretically, they would have a better education and better manners and would treat Agnes with the respect that she deserves as a governess, the instructor of their children, not as a servant, right? So she's very hopeful. And then we read chapter 7, Horton Lodge, and then we read about her experiences at Horton Lodge, even though she was more experienced and hopeful. Remember, we talked about emotional landscape. The very beginning of the chapter is ominous when she arrives at Horton Lodge. It is a cold, bitter cold day in January, and it is dark, it's stormy, it's windy. So the prospects, if we are to trust the weather, are not good. And this chapter is an overview of life at Horton Lodge, which is not what she had hoped it would be. Quite the contrary, right? It was scarcely better than at the Bloomfields. The children are older, but they lacked in education and manners. There are 4 children. Rosalie is the oldest, I think around 16 years old. She's very pretty, but she's vain and wants to learn only accomplishments that would that she could show off, right, and be considered, um, be admired by the other sex. Matilda, around 13 years old, she's wild, more like an animal than a girl. She likes to be outside. She doesn't care about her appearance or boys, but she doesn't care about her education either. And um, she swears a lot, uses bad words. John, the oldest boy, was unprincipled and unteachable, and he was sent to school, and Agnes was glad of it to get rid of him, although he went to school with very little education. And of course, the blame would always fall on Agnes, even though the fault of not learning anything was completely the children's. And Charles, the youngest, was a spoiled brat in a nutshell. And their mother didn't want them to exert themselves. So she played a significant role in their lack of education. She didn't want the children to exert themselves. She only wanted them to be happy. So they learned very little. Um, and Agnes had this plan, right? She really wanted to make a difference, but it was not working. So, and with the mother hindering the children's education, the path was very troublesome, toilsome to Agnes indeed. Very little progress. Now, let's continue reading chapters 8 and 9 to see if Agnes will remain hopeful, if she will have the strength to carry on. We know that this is an older narrator looking back, so we know that she stayed there for at least 2 years. So we know she's not going to leave just yet. So I wonder what the rest of the journey with the Murrays will be like. Let's start with chapter 8 called The Coming Out. At 18, so that is around 2 years later, Miss Murray was to emerge from the quiet obscurity of the schoolroom into the full blaze of the fashionable world, as much of it, at least, as could be had out of London, for her papa could not be persuaded to leave his rural pleasures and pursuits even for a few weeks' residence in town. She was to make her debut on the 3rd of January at a magnificent ball which her mamma proposed to give to all the nobility and choice gentry of O and its neighborhood of 20 miles round. Of course, she looked forward to it with the wildest impatience and the most extravagant anticipations of delight. So she's making her debut. She's coming out. This is a very interesting footnote about 19th century culture. Um, the debut is the formal presentation of a young woman to society, after which time she was officially eligible for marriage. The title of this chapter, The Coming Out, refers to the same event. So it's a very big moment in a woman's life when she is introduced to society. That means she's ready to be married. So it's all about business then, about finding the right match. And if you've watched Bridgerton, that's what the whole series is all about, pretty much the whole marriage market in Regency England. So a bit prior to this moment, but still the things hadn't changed much at that point. But it's also imagine that a girl would have a very limited experience up until this point. She would be mainly at home, so she would not be allowed to go to balls or any social events, major social events, because she had not come out yet. Now it's a step into adulthood and also a step outside of her home. So it is, of course, exciting. Miss Grey, said she, one evening, a month before the all-important day, as I was perusing a long and extremely interesting letter of my sister's, which I had just glanced at in the morning to see what it contained, to see that it contained no very bad news, and kept till now unable before to find a quiet moment for reading it. So we can also see that she has very little time for herself. She's received a letter from her sister and she had to wait pretty much the whole day to find a moment to read it. And when she's finally reading it, she's interrupted by Miss Murray. Miss Grey, do put away that dull, stupid letter and listen to me. I'm sure my talk must be far more amusing than that. You see the different perspectives of the two, right? Agnes was really cherishing the moment reading the letter, and Agnes thinks it's just a boring thing. Pay attention to me and much more interesting. She seated herself on the low stool at my feet, and I, suppressing a sigh of vexation, began to fold up the epistle. You should tell the good people at home not to bore you with such long letters, said she, and above all, do bid them write on proper note paper and not on those great vulgar sheets. You should see the charming little ladylike notes mamma writes to her friends. The good people at home, replied I, know very well that the longer their letters are, the better I like them. I should be very sorry to receive a charming little ladylike note from any of them. And I thought you were too much of a lady yourself, Miss Murray, to talk about the vulgarity of writing on a large sheet of paper. Well, I only said it to tease you. But now I want to talk about the ball and to tell you that you positively must put off your holidays till it is over. Why so? I shall not be present at the ball. No, but you will see the rooms decked out before it begins, and hear the music, and above all, see me in my splendid new dress. I shall be so charming, you'll be ready to worship me. You really must stay. So look what Miss Gray is asking here, right? She wants, look what Miss Murray is asking here. She wants, Miss Gray, she wants Agnes to stay, to put off her holidays, to put off her coming back to her family to spend Christmas, to stay, but not because she can attend the ball. She cannot attend the ball as a governess, and she was not really giving a lot of liberty or authority in this house either. So she would be just like the servants, not allowed in the ball, but she was to stay to see Miss Murray in the dress so that she would worship her beauty, to see the rooms decorated and to hear the music, but not to participate in the ball. I should like to see you very much, but I shall have many opportunities of seeing you equally charming on the occasion of some of the numberless balls and parties that are to be, and I cannot disappoint my friends by postponing my return so long. Oh, never mind your friends. Tell them we won't let you go. But to say the truth, it would be a disappointment to myself. I long to see them as much as they to see me, perhaps more. Well, but it is such a short time, nearly a fortnight by my computation, and besides, I cannot bear the thoughts of a Christmas spent from home, and moreover, my sister is going to be married. Is she? When? Not till next month, but I want to be there to assist her in making preparations, and to make the best of her company while we have her. Why didn't you tell me before? I've only got the news in this letter, which you stigmatize as dull and stupid, and won't let me read. Who is she to be married to? To Mr. Richardson, the vicar of a neighboring parish. Is he rich? No, only comfortable. Is he handsome? No, only decent. Young? No, only middling. Oh, mercy, what a wretch! What sort of a house is it? I think this part is quite funny, right? Because you see the differences in expectations regarding marriage and what she wants to know about Mary, that's Agnes's sister, about Mary's fiance, right? If he's rich, if he's handsome, if he's young, that's all that matters to her. And the answer is no to all of those questions. So Rosalie is quite shocked. What sort of a house is it? Now she asks about the house. A quiet little vicarage with an ivy-clad porch, an old-fashioned garden, and oh, stop, you'll make me sick. How can she bear it? I expect she'll not only be able to bear it, but to be very happy. You did not ask me if Mr. Richardson were a good, wise, or amiable man. I could have answered yes to all these questions. At least so Mary thinks, and I hope she will not find herself mistaken. So you see, for Mary and for Agnes, what matters is whether Mr. Richardson is a good, wise, or amiable man. But those questions didn't even cross the mind of Rosalie. But, miserable creature, how can she think of spending her life there, cooped up with that nasty old man, and no hope of change? He's not old, he's only 6 or 7 and 30, and she herself is 28 and as sober as if she were 50. Oh, that's better then. They're well matched. But do they call him the worthy vicar? I don't know, but if they do, I believe he merits the epithet. Mercy, how shocking! And will she wear a white apron and make pies and puddings? So look at the fantasy in Rosalie's mind. And this view is appalling to her, the view of a woman in an apron making pies and puddings. I don't know about the white apron, but I dare say she will make pies and puddings now and then, but that will be no great hardship, as she has done it before. And will she go about in a plain shawl and a large straw bonnet, carrying tracts and bone soup to her husband's poor parishioners? I'm not clear about that, but I dare say she will do her best to make them comfortable in body and mind, in accordance with our mother's example. And that's the end of chapter 8. It's a very short chapter, uh, but quite entertaining, quite nice to read. I personally found it nice, interesting to know more about Rosalie, the oldest girls, and how their relationship has changed after 2 years. So they're much more, well, intimate, close friends, although very clear hierarchy. And the comparison of what matters for Rosalie and what matters in life and in a love match to Mary and Agnes. So that's the coming out, the introduction of Rosalie to society. Now let's read chapter 9 called The Ball. Now, Miss Grey, exclaimed Miss Murray, immediately as I entered the schoolroom after having taken off my outdoor garments upon returning from my 4 weeks' recreation. Now shut the door and sit down, and I'll tell you all about the ball. So we can gather that she went home for Christmas. She spent 4 weeks away, so she missed the ball, and now Miss Grey cannot wait to tell her all the details. No, devil on it, no, shouted Miss Matilda. Hold your tongue, can't you, and let me tell her about my new mare. Such a splendor, Miss Grey, a fine blood mare. Do be quiet, Matilda, and let me tell my news first. No, no, Rosalie, you'll be such a devil long time over it, and shall hear me first. I'll be hanged if she doesn't. I'm sorry to hear, Miss Matilda, that you've not got rid of that shocking habit yet of swearing, right? She says devil all the time and a very vulgar language. Well, I can't help it, but I'll never say a wicked word again if you'll only listen to me and tell Rosalie to hold her confounded tongue. Rosalie remonstrated, and I thought I should have been torn in pieces between them. But Miss Matilda, having the loudest voice, her sister at length gave in and suffered her to tell her story first. So I was doomed to hear a long account of her splendid mare, its breeding and pedigree, its paces, its action, its spirit, etc., and of her own amazing skill and courage in riding it, concluding with an assertion that she could clear a 5-barred gate like winking, that papa said she might hunt next time the hounds met, and mamma had ordered a bright scarlet hunting habit for her. That she could clear a 5-barred gate, imagine a gate with 5 wooden bars, and she could jump over it like winking very easily. And if you're curious about the expression next time the hounds met, let's take a look at the footnote. It means the next time a hunting party was organized, because you would bring your hounds, your dogs, hunting dogs that would help in the hunting party. So they would gather the dogs. So the next time the hounds met meant the next time a hunting party was organized. Oh, Matilda, what stories you're telling! Exclaimed her sister. Well, she answered, no whit abashed, I know I could clear a 5-barred gate if I tried, and papa will say I may hunt, and mamma will order the habit when I ask them. Well, now get along, replied Miss Murray, and do, dear Matilda, try to be a little more ladylike. Miss Grey, I wish you would tell her not to use such shocking words. She will call her horse a mare. It is so inconceivably shocking. And then she uses such dreadful expressions in describing it. She must have learned it from the grooms. It nearly puts me into fits when she begins. I learned it from Papa, you ass, and his jolly friends, said the young lady, vigorously cracking a hunting whip which she habitually carried in her hand. I'm as good a judge of horseflesh as the best of them. Well, now get along, you shocking girl. I really shall take a fit if you go on in such a way. And now, Miss Grey, attend to me. I'm going to tell you about the ball. You must be dying to hear about it. I know. Oh, such a ball! You never saw or heard or read or dreamt of anything like it in all your life. The decorations, the entertainment, the supper, the music were undescribable. And then the guests. There were two noblemen, three baronets, and five titled ladies, and other ladies and gentlemen innumerable. The ladies, of course, were of no consequence to me, except to put me in a good humor with myself by showing how ugly and awkward most of them were, and the best, mamma told me, the most transcendent beauties among them were nothing to me. As for me, Miss Grey, I'm so sorry you didn't see me. I was charming, wasn't I, Matilda? Middling. No, but I really was. At least so mamma said. And Brown and Williamson. Brown said she was sure no gentleman could set eyes on me without falling in love that minute. And so I may be allowed to be a little vain. I know you think me a shocking, conceited, frivolous girl. But then, I don't attribute it all to my personal attractions. I give some praise to the hairdresser and some to my exquisitely lovely dress. You must see tomorrow. White gauze over pink satin, and so sweetly made, and a necklace and bracelet of beautiful large pearls. So now she humbles herself. It's not just me and my charms, of course. I give some praise to the hairdresser and dress. Now, Miss Grey, I have no doubt you looked very charming, but should that delight you so very much? Oh, no, not that alone. But then I was so much admired, and I made so many conquests in that one night. You'd be astonished to hear. But what good will they do you? What good? Think of any woman asking that. Well, I should think one conquest would be enough, and too much, unless the subjugation were mutual. But I never agree with you on those opinions, on those points. Now, wait a bit, and I'll tell you my principal admirers, those who made themselves very conspicuous that night and after, for I've been to two parties since. Unfortunately, the two noblemen, Lord G and Lord F, were married, or I might have condescended to be particularly gracious to them. As it was, I did not, though Lord F, who hates his wife, was evidently much struck with me. He asked me to dance with him twice. He's a charming dancer, by the by, and so am I. You can't think how well I did. I was astonished at myself. My lord was very complimentary, too. Rather too much, in fact, and I thought it proper to be a little haughty and repellent. But I had the pleasure of seeing his nasty cross wife ready to perish with spite and vexation. Oh, Miss Murray, you don't mean to say that such a thing could really give you pleasure. However cross or, well, I know it's very wrong, but never mind. I mean to be good sometime. Only don't preach now, there's a good creature. I haven't told you half yet. Oh, let me see. Oh, I was going to tell you how many unmistakable admirers I had. Sir Thomas Ashby was one, Sir Hugh Meltham, and Sir Broadley Wilson are old codgers, only fit companions for mamma and papa. Sir Thomas is young, rich, and gay, but an ugly beast nevertheless. However, mamma says I should not mind that after a few months' acquaintance. Then there was Harry Meltham, Sir Hugh's younger son, rather good looking and a pleasant fellow to flirt with, but being a younger son, that is all he's good for. Then there was young Mr. Green, rich enough, but of no family, and a great stupid fellow, a mere country booby. And then our good rector, Mr. Hartfield, a humble admirer, he ought to consider himself, but I fear he has forgotten to number humility among his stock of Christian virtues. Humility. Now, what about herself, right? She's she's so happy that she's been admired and she's so vain, right? And she talks about these people as if they were just objects, right? And she even um, is happy that she made somebody's wife jealous. Now, here you may wonder what it means. That's a very interesting contextual information about inheritance procedures at the time. So there is this pleasant guy, young guy, Sir Hugh's younger son, but he's a younger son, so he's not good use. And um, the practice of primogeniture, so the firstborn, which was the norm for landed families during this period, required all land to be left to the eldest son upon a father's death. Because of their less secure economic state, younger sons were less in demand on the marriage market. So the younger son would not inherit the family's property. So he would not be a good choice to marry, even though he was the most agreeable one. This is also uh, what concerns the Bennet sisters in Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, right? They're all girls, five girls. So uh, the property of Mr. Bennet has to be inherited by the closest living male relative, and that's a faraway cousin, Mr. Collins. So, Mr. Collins, who has nothing to do with the family, only because he's the closest male relative, will inherit the property, and the daughters of Mr. Bennet will be left with nothing because of that law. Um, was Mr. Hartfield at the ball? Yes, to be sure. Did you think he was too good to go? I thought he might consider it unclerical. Mr. Hartfield is the rector. By no means, he did not profane his cloth by dancing, but it was with difficulty he could refrain, poor man. He looked as if he were dying to ask my hand just for one set. And, oh, by the by, he's got a new curate. That silly old fellow, Mr. Bligh, has got his long wished for living at last and gone. And what is the new one like? Oh, such a beast. Weston, his name is. I can give you his description in 3 words: an insane, ugly, stupid blockhead. That's four, no matter. But enough of him now. Then she returned to the ball and gave me a further account of her deportment there and at the several parties she had since attended, and further particulars respecting Sir Thomas Ashby and Messrs. Meltham, Green, and Hatfield, and the ineffaceable impression she had brought upon each of them. Well, which of the four do you like best? Said I, suppressing my third or fourth yawn. I detest them all, replied she, shaking her bright ringlets in vivacious scorn. That means, I suppose, I like them all. But which most? No, I really do detest them all. But Harry Meltham is the handsomest and most amusing, and Mr. Hatfield the cleverest, Sir Thomas the wickedest, and Mr. Green the most stupid. But the one I'm to have, I suppose, if I'm doomed to have any of them, is Sir Thomas Ashby. Surely not, if he's so wicked, and if you dislike him. Oh, I don't mind his being wicked. He's all the better for that. And as for disliking him, I shouldn't greatly object to being Lady Ashby of Ashby Park, if I must marry. But if I could be always young, I would be always single. I should like to enjoy myself thoroughly and coquette with all the world, till I am on the verge of being called an old maid, and then, to escape the infamy of that, after having made 10,000 conquests, to break all their hearts save one, by marrying some high-born, rich, indulgent husband, whom, on the other hand, 50 ladies were dying to have. Well, as long as you entertain those views, keep single by all means, and never marry at all, not even to escape the infamy of old maidenhood. And that's the end of chapter 9, called The Ball. Also, a very entertaining chapter, in my opinion. I think it's very funny, this interaction between Rosalie and Agnes and the completely different worldviews. How Rosalie only wants to be admired, and if she could, she would not marry at all. But only make conquests and be admired for as long as possible. And then, when she's on the brink of becoming a spinster, an old maiden, then she would marry and marry that one person that all the others were dying to have, all the other girls were dying to have. And then Miss Grey says, well, if that's what marriage means to you, well, then by all means, don't marry at all and stay single all your life. So these were two very short chapters, but very interesting chapters. Let me know what you think of these two. Um, and next time we'll move on and we're going to read chapters 10 and 11. Chapter 10 is called The Church, and chapter 11 is called The Cottagers. So we'll know more about how Agnes is mingling with the society close um, to the park, and how she is faring with the Murrays at Horton Lodge. All right, so I hope you've enjoyed this session. And as always, if you would like to continue studying literature with me, there are plenty of choices of courses you can choose from. Um, you can check them all on the website booksandculture.club. Heads up, in October, it's time for a new literary workshop. And in October, we're going to talk. October, there's always something related to Halloween. Last year, we discussed um, oh, what did we discuss last year? My goodness. Was it? No, Wuthering Heights was in July. October was, oh, sorry, it was Anne Radcliffe's Sicilian Romance. Yes. We discussed terror and horror and Gothic fiction. And now there's a course based on that workshop. So if you did not attend the workshop, but you would like to know more about Anne Radcliffe's Gothic fiction, the first woman writer that was very successful in the late 18th century and was the queen of the Gothic, and the distinction between terror and horror. You can check out the course on the Sublime and Radcliffe's Gothic fiction, available for purchase. And this October, we're going to discuss Louis Stevenson's The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and we're going to talk about the doppelganger in Gothic fiction. It's going to be very, very nice. So if you would like to participate, stay tuned. Registration will open soon. The workshops will take place at the end of October. So I hope to see you again in our next session, and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Bye bye.